Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Aditi Banerjee and I'm based in the UK, just outside of London, and I'm 17 years old. I think if I had to talk about a time in my life that has really shaped how I see the world and how I see the world through the lens of inclusion and how we can create an equitable society, it would be my experience during the pandemic, because I think that personal experience really solidified how there are always groups in society and communities that are sometimes forgotten by the institutions that can be writing policy or that can be making decisions that impact our lives. And I've always lived in a multi-generational household. I've lived with my grandmother, who has taught me her wisdom, her stories from where she grew up in India, and all of the morals that she used to walk me to school every day. And I think that has always made me really close to my grandma, who has always worked within the community and always tried to do more to help with the mental health and the well-being of people where I live. And during the pandemic, she was vulnerable, and so we decided to stay at home and shield and protect her health. But during the pandemic, the government's position in the UK was that everyone and all students, particularly if in my case, where I was living with a clinically vulnerable member of my family, had to go back into school. And that was something that we felt would risk the health of a family member that I have grown up with my whole life, and whom it's not a case of whether or not I can visit or not, because we live in the same house. And so during that time, it was, I think, eye-opening to see how I was essentially cut off from teacher feedback and being given support in lessons during my final GCSE exam year, and also had, I think, a lot of uncertainty and stress from not really knowing how I'm going to get my whole future. I think it seems like, when there was increasing threats over a period of a few months, where I was essentially working independently and having to also deal with the school cutting off access to Zoom links, for example, which were given to other students who were self-isolating. And I think that really showed me how, whether it be the head teacher at the school or whether it be the government at the time, not really considering multi-generational households, who oftentimes are ethnic minorities, who are kind of forgotten in making the rules, and how it is going to impact many families who aren't able to protect and feel a sense of safety during a time that was difficult for so many families. And I think for me that shaped a lot of how I then looked at whenever an issue is in the news or whenever I'm hearing about stories. It's interesting to think about the story that isn't being told, and what is maybe not making it to the headlines. I think that also catalyzed a lot of activism in through spoken word poetry, as I've been writing spoken word poetry to talk about social issues, about whether it be the Me Too movement, or whether it be talking about Black Lives Matter, or talking about how the importance of supporting refugees, and work I've done with Ukrainian refugees to try and support and peer teach them. But during the pandemic, I think I really cultivated a community where I was able to join sessions, and internationally there were writing workshops where we created a community with a group of people from Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and Reading in the UK, and the south of France, and we all got together every week and wrote down and shared each other's stories, and found out about each other's lives, even though it was online, and even though we felt probably quite isolated at the time. It was a way to connect, and I love hearing stories, and the way that that gave me an insight into the lives of people across the world at such a unique time in history. I think that the fact that I was able to really practice in a safe space writing, since then I've really been able to do spoken word poetry as a way to kind of um, hopefully galvanize audiences to inspire them to care about particular issues, to be interested in um, how we can kind of collectively create change in the world, and have an impact. And so through the community that I found in the pandemic, as much as there was huge amounts of uncertainty and worry at that time, there was also a wonderful community that I was able to find, and that gave me a sense of release and a place to kind of um, just express myself. I think that really opened my eyes to how amazing it is when you can find a community, and when you can find a place where you are able to share stories. I think since then I've been able to, since the pandemic has kind of settled more, and I've been able to go more to in-person events, I've been able to attend events where there are stories being told that link to the wider world, and I've been able to listen in on those conversations as well as perform, and share poetry that shines a light on those issues, whether it be a mental health conference for young people to raise awareness about how they can tackle mental health when that is really worsening, especially since the pandemic, and also an event at the Barbican that was talking about how the community is really at the heart of everything, and how we should shift power, and in this case in the arts industry, from institutions to the communities. And it was particularly fascinating to listen to that panel discussion, where they spoke about a storytelling methodology of having the participants' feedback be told rather than through boring checkbox forms, but through instead them being given the space to tell their own stories, which I really loved, and was able to write a poem in real time. I think from all the practice of those writing workshops in the pandemic, that I was able to perform at the end of the event. I think each time that I am able to go and have the privilege of speaking at these different events, I learn so much, and I also really love being able to have access to a community. Each time you step into the room, you meet new people and find so many people who are working towards similar causes or have the same passion, that I think once you find those spaces, it's a great support network to continue doing this work.
Now, I know that the spoken word is something you're really good at. Do you have anything you could share with us right now that could
Yeah,
inspire our audience?
I can. I'll do probably one of my favorite, maybe because of it's more happy tone. I think sometimes I like to write about really big social issues, and that can be quite daunting. And I think one of my favorite poems is because this is quite uplifting. So I have a poem
Okay.
called "Where Hope is Born." So hopefully it will be inspiring because it can give a bit of much needed hope.
Okay. So before you start,
Yeah.
I'm hearing a bit of a click each time you speak. I think your
Mike.
headset is. Can you do it without the headset and we see what
I can
the sound difference
put.
will be? It's just seeing if that improves. Say something. Have you pulled it out?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Is it
You might
quiet
have
or is it okay?
if you could speak just a little bit louder. It was
Yeah.
quite.
I think sometimes with the mic it's a bit quieter, but I can try. Is
This
this
is
better
that's
than?
perfect. Yeah, because there was a bit of a little sound that kept coming each time you said a few words. All
Yeah.
right, so fire away. Let's listen to this poem.
Awesome.
Introduce it and then just fire away.
Okay. So this poem is called Where Hope is Born. And I wrote this a few years ago for an event called the UK Youth Inspiring Hope Awards. So I think what inspired me for this to write this poem was reading about the work and hearing about the project where they really celebrate all of the work being done by young people to create really inspiring change. So this is called Where Hope is Born. Newborns can only see up to 30 centimeters in front of their face. The rest is a blur of light, shape, and movement. The world's first lesson is to tell you that you can never see the future clearly, only just enough to let you know it's worth the walk. Hope can take on a life of its own, grow legs and walk to the local cafe, leave a piece of itself at the coffee table for the next caffeine-consuming customer at Starbucks. Engrave its initials in the bark of a tall oak for two unassuming starstruck young loves at the park, and hope. Hope is believing in the wonderful right up until the end credits. This is a long film called Life, so pack some popcorn and bring plenty of hope in your purse, pockets, palms. Share it with everything you touch and watch them smile with a full heart. Hope will bury itself in a bookmark and Gulliver's travel into the curls of a page. Rest in the spine of a classic tale until it's swallowed whole by the shallow breath of a girl sat inside her own shadow. Absorbed in paper, bound by imagination, found and gifted, hope is in a locket passed down generations. Lost and found at a charity store, a thrift shop, a doorstep to your next opportunity. Hope leaves behind footsteps in the sand that can't be washed away by the tide. It's scattered through the beach and gently seeps into your stride. I have been playing hide and seek with the sun, and this is its finest disappearing act. And yet, somewhere on the flip side of this globe is a gleaming trophy belonging to the sky. It shined, beaming, I won. So even in this sheet of darkness, I know the sun will come home and hug my window frame by morning. This hope, it's in new life. It's finding new in the old. It's the heartbeat that keeps the soul of time alive. It's an untraveled road, the storm and the rainbow, shaking hands, sharing stories, making a pact to play Chinese whispers with wonder, pass the parcel with joy, add laughter to the clouds' next recipe of rain, and we will call this a new day, call this change, growth. Hope is not knowing what the world will look like tomorrow, but knowing it will be better than today. In the first 3 minutes following the birth of the universe, the light elements like hydrogen and helium were formed. In the last 3 minutes, the universe expanded about 8,000 miles.
Hope is believing everything is growing, even when we don't feel it or know it, even in a blur of light, shape, and movement. Did you feel that? The universe just grew beneath your feet. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That is truly, truly inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, listening to you speak, you take me back to my childhood. I started writing poetry and getting involved in theater when I was 17. And it was a time when I was an activist like you, using spoken word to spread political messages through
Yeah.
plays. So
Wow.
I grew up in Zimbabwe and we did not have freedom of speech. I lived under a dictatorship for 35 years. And we found that you could have a public gathering by pretending you were having a play at a school. So we would write these political plays and bring people to a school, and we would dance and sing, and the message was in the music and in the songs. And you were talking about community participation. We forced the community to take part in the singing so they would remember the messages in the songs and take them home. So today you have truly inspired me to go back to my spoken word and my poetry. I actually have something that's already formulating in my head. So thank you so much for being such an inspiration for us.
Thank you
Now,
so much. I wish I could see those plays.
this is way before cell phones, 1986. So unfortunately, there's no evidence of fun that I had with those projects, but it truly changed the trajectory of my life. Now, if there was another young person who's listening to us speaking right now, knows that they have something to say, are too scared to step up onto a stage, onto a platform, and share who they are, if you could give them three nuggets of wisdom based on what you are doing with your life, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
Okay, my first thing I would say is every single time I go to perform, every single time I stand on a stage, I am absolutely scared. I won't have a tip to not be scared. My tip would be that even though you're scared, I think the brave thing is to do it anyway. The brave thing doesn't have to be that you overcome your fear and you're perfectly calm when you get up. I think it's just to know that despite how scary it is, you're brave enough to do it anyway, because it's important and because the world needs you to. And the second thing I would say is that when I think if you feel like you don't have enough power to have an impact, and it feels really daunting, I think there is always someone, and you don't know who it is, but there will be somebody who will look up to you or look up to someone in your position and wish that they would speak up. And there will be people who will benefit from, so many people who will benefit from you trying to create change. And I think when enough people do that, that's when we see real impact, because of the collective action, because of the strength in numbers. And lastly, just for yourself, just for your own motivation, I think one of the most valuable things we can do for our own mental health, for our own sanity in this crazy world, is finding that purpose and being driven to take action. And for me, the hopelessness I sometimes feel watching the news, I think a lot of us feel sometimes, my way of coping with that is feeling like I have the power and I can take the power back by doing something about it, even if it's just writing down a poem in my bedroom. But doing the thing that expresses how we should be changing the world, I think that takes your power back.
Oh, I absolutely love that. You know, you have to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
We really have to. I read somewhere a quote that said, the worst thing that can happen to a human being is to die with the regret that you didn't try.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the richest places in the world are graveyards because they're full of people who had brilliant ideas, amazing voices, and they didn't have the courage to step up and use that gift. So thank you for reminding us of all of that. Now, I know that you are passionate about climate change. Tell me why. Tell me how you became an advocate for climate change.
The why, I think, is I first found out, I'd say first delved into climate change when I was 13. I was creating probably my first activism entry into the world was when I decided to create short YouTube videos to try and talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. And in researching that, I found that the goal to take action on climate change for me really stood out, and felt I needed more than 2 minutes to really explain not just what the issues are, but how we can take action and what we can do to try and combat this collectively and individually. And I think the reason that climate change stood out was because of all, and there are a lot of issues, this is one which really does have an ultimatum. It really does have a ticking time on it that will be irreversible, and is already becoming and has been life-threatening in other parts of the world. And especially I think living in the UK, and a lot of the people that I speak to, my friends in the UK, it's sometimes very easy to forget how this is already impacting people across the world, and how we already had so many natural disasters, but whether it be, the floods in Pakistan, and how these things are linked to the climate changing, and the people who are suffering the most are those who often are living in countries which have not even contributed the most to the issue. And I think it's really important that we therefore do our part. And I think a huge part of that is holding our governments to account, and holding to account these large corporations, where we as the population have the power to show what we care about. And if we demand change, I think that's the only way through this collective action to really ensure that climate change is not forgotten as something that's a long-term issue, something that's too far past like an election cycle to think about, because it will eventually affect all of us in a way that if we decide to act too late, it will be exactly that. It will be too late. It's really urgent.
Wow. And you're so right. It's about collective action, each person doing their little bit. It adds up. It does add up. And, when I look at your generation, our generation has made a mess for the future to come. And more young people need to step up and say, hey, hold us accountable to what's actually happened. So thank you for trying to leave the planet a better place than we found it. These are really critical issues. I live here in the South Pacific. A lot of South Pacific islands are going underwater because of the rising waters, and it is just a terrible, terrible thing to watch and to see. Now, I also know that you have performed at a Black History Month event. Tell us, what is the name of that organization? How did you get that opportunity? That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I think the event was at RS Group, which was I think it was on Forbes 100, but it's a electro the electric components. That's a long word. Company, but they had employee resource group who was running Black History Month events each week. And the particular event I was at was incredibly inspiring because the panel were young people who were in engineering and who were also really driving forward the representation in an industry that I think really needed to have these conversations about how particularly Black people could be more represented and in senior roles, because I think we also sometimes see and one of the things that we spoke about at this event is how there is interest, and you see in the number of people who want to take degrees and graduate and learn engineering, the numbers are more representative. And the second it comes into entry into the industry or the next step up, it comes into each step of progression, how the numbers drop. And I think that's true across many industries and across many forms of representation, where we see how even when there is a representation of diversity, when you look at the top levels, you often really need to see more. I think that the best thing about that event was that my poem was a celebratory poem and one that was specific to each of the panel members. And so I called out the amazing work that one man is doing to help support many other young people in their industry, and another young man on the panel was doing to create one of the biggest reports available on the data in the industry, as well as each of the individual projects that they're doing within their companies and outside, to really have that celebration of the Black talent and excellence in the room. That was really fun to perform.
Wow, that is just amazing. Now, I know that you're a volunteer teacher for a school. Mm-hmm. Tell us the name of the school. Tell us how you got involved and why.
Yes. This is Svitlo School, and it was set up by an incredible woman as soon as the war in Ukraine started, who's a Ukrainian living in the UK. And they've, I think, had probably over 200 students now. But I found out about the school a year ago through my own school, which is an online school since COVID, and was given the opportunity to initially, just over the summer, run some sessions and teach whatever I really wanted to in shaping those peer lessons, to have a continuity of education. And I felt passionate about it because I think these are kids affected by the war, who many have had to move home multiple times, move country. The uncertainty, I think, that I resonated with from COVID by 100-fold in a way where I felt any small thing I can do to kind of be one of those people supporting, going back to how I remembered how important community was for me when I felt uncertainty. But I've since done that every week for almost a year now. And we've initially, I would kind of have week to week whatever the students told me that they wanted to learn, but it's really flexible and fun. Sometimes we play games, and I've had beautiful presentations from the students about any of their passions. I had origami taught by one of the students. Actually, I think here, because I keep it with me, I have like a paper heart that I can't do origami very well, but she taught everyone in the group how to make that paper heart. And it's been really lovely to hear them really grow confidence in those sessions. And I think because there's two separate age groups with older and younger students, but I think because I am 17, I think I definitely feel like I make friends more than a student-teacher relationship, which has been really wonderful for me to connect with them. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
That is beautiful. So now my last question for you, I'm going to teleport you into the future. And let's just imagine that time is an illusion. Your past, your present exists right now. And I can take you to the 100-year-old you, and you're sitting in your rocking chair surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. If you could go and have a conversation with the future you, this wise woman who's leading you up to that point, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
To my future 100-year-old self. Oh my gosh. Wow, what an interesting question. I think I would, if I could ask for advice, I might ask for some advice, and maybe hope that I was able to have an impact, and would want to would kind of talk to her about the impact that she feels she was able to have, and the stories that she was able to hear, hopefully from people around the world.
The reason why I love to ask that question is that a lot of people don't realize that that future you is already here. She's already in you. She's already guiding you. And sometimes when you get stuck, you can tune into the energy of who you are becoming. I do it through meditation and through prayer. And I just ask the question, what is my next step? Tell me, guide me. And then all these little knowings kind of percolate and these ideas form, and I take action based on those ideas. So I want to leave you with that so that you will remember that it's already in you. Everything you're trying to create is already there. You were born with every single gift that you need to change this world. You just have to trust that inner voice and take action.
Yeah. Wow. It's a really powerful exercise. I think I'll be doing that again.
It was absolutely wonderful meeting you today and just sharing your story with my audience. Please don't stop. Don't get tired. Don't get discouraged. The world needs an army of Aditis. We need more people like you. So just be the light, be the inspiration. They say that it takes very little effort for a candle to light other candles. And sometimes you just have to shine in your light, and other people can be ignited and they can take action as well. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in tonight to listen to this amazing story. Tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing person. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you again for this interview. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making